So nowadays you can see that large-scale industrial facilities refuse from using the full cycle model that does not allow to manufacture competitive production. So far they transfer to new models of industrial scale. So our task for today is to discuss together what is the contractual manufacturing, what models exist, what type of experience they gained, how it is being implemented in our country, or whether it's being implemented in our country. It is very important, dear colleagues, not to allow the same mistakes as we admitted at the very beginning in terms of what technopark is, what business model is. So far, our expert community decided to launch the discussion on determination of the forms, types of business models, how they integrate into industrial manufacturing. Nowadays, the Russian Federation implements the entire set of instruments or tools that stipulate cooperation. So it is cooperation that associates in development of such links of contractual manufacturing. So these tools are being operated, and it is stipulated by the Department of the Industrial Policy of the Ministry of Trade. Here you see Alexei Besprozvannych, the deputy head of the Department of Industrial Policy. So he is the person who is authorized to develop the state policy in the field of industrial production, manufacturing, and you govern the entire set of directions in this field. So please tell us what instruments, what tools are the most important from the point of view of development of such relationships, and how you build up your relationships with the regions, and how you select the methods. So, dear colleagues, thank you very much for the question. In preparation for this roundtable, as far as we discussed it together with Andrei, that it would be very interesting to hear. So I would just like to interrupt. I would like the microphone to be louder, because it's not always when I hear everything. So can you hear everything in the audience hall? The answer is yes. So we proceed with the first slide. Now, briefly, as far as we are very much limited in time, we have just 1 hour, so I would like to tell you what our department responsible for regional manufacturing or industry is dealing with. So we have a few directions. The first one is related to infrastructure on interaction with industrial parks, technoparks, and industrial clusters. So this is what the cooperation consists of, and our major task is to make it possible to interact with the regions, and we would like these tools to be working tools. These three directions have their own tools of support. If my presentation is on, I will tell about it. So the second direction is the regional industrial policy. This is what Andrei was talking about. This is the interaction with the regions in terms of regional industry development, import substitution, and support to regional programs and cooperation. So, and direction number 3 is the integrated information space. This is how we interact with the regions. Everything is based on agreements in which we lay out the parameters for cooperation. So these will be the agreements between the government and the governor. This is a kind of a roadmap for cooperation between the regions. So now, just briefly, I would like to tell you about the industrial parks. So the way how we see it in dynamics in terms of development of industrial parks in Russia, you see that these parks are well received by the facilities, but also by those facilities that have the foreign investments. And so here you see the flags of the major countries who are the main investors for these types of production. You see the number 5 companies, and you see the dynamics that is growing year by year. It is very important to see how it will be developed, and we are also dealing with the effectiveness of the parks, and we would like to get the feedback from 1 ruble of investments. So speaking of the industrial parks, here we listed all of the parks that are registered in the Ministry of Trade of the Russian Federation, and I would like to say that these are the parks that submit the documents for support. You see the geography. You see that the strategy will move forward. We will increase the number of individuals in companies involved in industrial parks, and we will work hard on filling the industrial parks, and we will establish new industrial parks where they do not exist. So now, together with regions, we study why some of the industrial parks are not working effectively. So we study the interaction in this respect, and this is the way how we are going to move forward. As for industrial technoparks, this is the way. This is the picture that we see at the moment. We have 22 regions with industrial parks. Maybe some of the information is a little bit obsolete, but it's about 30 that are being developed at the moment. This is one of the tools that allows us to see today and to grow the large-scale and small-scale entities at the territories of the industrial parks. We would like to make stresses on efficiency of these industrial parks. As far as today, the number of those is very limited. They're also concentrated in the central part of Russia. And also we have 3 federal districts where we have 3 major industrial parks, and the rest are not included in the registries. However, you can call them in a different way. It's related to definition of an industrial park. Maybe not everything could be treated as an industrial park, but the strategy would be the same in this respect. Speaking of the instruments of support, there are 2 major instruments that are being utilized by regions in terms of industrial parks, clusters, and technoparks, in terms of recuperation of the expenses on loans, and also it's related to Law 11.9. This is what we're going to discuss at the strategic session together with the regions, where we're going to discuss it with the regions, how it is being used effectively. You see that 10 technoparks have already used this tool. It's about 1,800,000,000 rubles used this year. We've got application for 3 billions. I think in the average it's about 3.5 billion that we are going to support. As for industrial clusters, I would say that we have a tool related to cooperation. This is what the story is. So we see that we create workplaces in this respect. The average cooperation is a bit lower. It depends on the desire of the regions, so it's about 20. We're not going to decrease. We're not going to reduce this number. Very often it happens that an owner comes to apply for 80 companies and he says, well, I have a cluster. It's not a cluster because it's made for himself. We are mainly working on regional clusters and also interregional clusters. The same story is typical for the center of Russia and the northwest of Russia, Privolzhsky Federal District. It's a leading district and others are lagging behind. So this is the geoinformation system of technological parks. On parks, clusters, and technoparks, you can find all the necessary information, both for businesses and for regions. You can select any site, any platform, and you can perform any type of calculations in respect to cost of energy, different costs associated with it. So it's possible to get an access from smartphones and tabs, and you can use it as the information base. So in one direction that is related to regional government is related to the programs of development. We have regional programs of development in terms of import substitution. Those are being developed by all of the regions. So we have synchronized them with our plans in every branch of industry, and at the moment we are synchronizing them on certain plans related to import substitution, and we're trying to obtain the global database in which we will see all of the directions in terms of cooperation. And as for the contractual production and manufacturing, this is a database that could be utilized by everyone in order to obtain all the necessary information. It will be on GISPA base. It will be in an atlas for all of the industrial facilities in Russia. So it will be a real platform for interaction between regions and facilities. As for the foundation of industry development, this is one of the instruments that also supports the intercluster work. And the reason why it is very important in this respect is that we have a lot of regional foundations, and the federal foundation helps for joint funding and for providing support for businesses, for parks and technoparks. And as for what we are trying to rely on is the interaction with all of the regions. We've signed different agreements with different parks and clusters, and hence you see that not all of them are presented here. But the most important thing that you see at the moment is that in our GISPA system, this is the Geo-Information System of Industry that is being launched by the Ministry of Industry. All of the information could be obtained there, and different types of cooperation could be established. Any company could approach it and have a look at this system. And the reason why it is important for the region and for cooperation between the regions, the fact is that we have 5 clusters. There used to be the largest cluster in Tatarstan where it worked effectively. And I think this is a very good example of cooperation. In terms of interaction. So this is our schedule for 2017 in terms of interaction with the regions for all of the 3 directions. Number 1, large-scale exhibition, international exhibitions. Number 2 is the regional exhibitions. So we take part in all of the regional meetings of the industrial committees, all of the different forums. And in the middle, you see the federal training programs together with businesses. We provide training for all of the deputy governors and heads of ministries of industry for 2 weeks. And at the end of this training, there is a meeting with the minister, which lasts 4 years, where they discuss different issues related to interaction. Level 2 is the federal training, so we go to federal districts. In 1 year, we will have such a training here in this region, so we will involve the municipal settlements, businesses, and day 3 is the day of the region, where the region approaches the ministry, and we're there together with the deputy ministers. They sit down and they try to solve the existing problems. This is the work that is being done in respect to cooperation and clusterization, and it is we're actively involved in this work. And I would also like to add one more instrument that is being developed by the ministry as well. It is based on that program that was introduced by the Ministry of Industry. This is program related to the increase of productivity in industry. This is instrument number 1 to 4. This is the instrument that is prepared jointly by our ministry with the regions. This is the program for development of such industries in the regions. So we will allocate certain funds for it, and we will jointly create the program. So we would like to invite all of the experts to participate in this program. So we'll try to do everything possible to provide all of the necessary tools and funds for it. So colleagues, thank you very much. Being a department, we've heard a lot about this, and being experts, we've heard that those clusters that are being developed at the moment, demonstrate their efficiency, but very often they start facing difficulties. So in all of the documents, we see that there must be a cooperation between them. But businesses, you cannot make businesses to stick to certain regulatory requirements. Everything is associated with the economical justification. So we see that level that was determined by the government, but it's not very often that the facilities would meet these requirements. So very often they are ready to work with one vendor, and they are not ready to work with other vendors. One should work with the centers of excellency, and not all of them are ready to work with different centers of excellency. So we think it would be appropriate that clusters should have certain kind of nodes. It's kind of a working title. Maybe it's not working closely with cooperation, but it's not closely bonded with cooperation, but maybe it will involve several facilities. We would like to have a look at the world practice in terms of contractual manufacturing. So we have two interesting experts who I would like to introduce. First one is Denis Kovalevich, the CEO for Nanocenter Technospark. So here comes the first question. We will proceed with the world experience. How deeply have we learned it? And what is going on in the world in terms of contractual manufacturing? And do we all understand the term contractual manufacturing in a correct way? Maybe there is no need to sit and wait for a stiff command. Just go and proceed with the contractual manufacturing. Maybe business has already started to speak from the foreign experience in understanding to utilize new models which are applicable in the territory of the Russian Federation. So, Andrei, thank you very much.
I think that nothing has to be forced here, in the sense that if there is a business somewhere, that entrepreneurs will do it. Will be an ENG there? Maybe there will be some recommendations. Oh yes, 100 years ago, the same issue was solved, and it was solved in favor of order. We asked to put some terminological issues on the PowerPoint. We talked before about it, and I tried to draw your attention, dear colleagues, on these issues. The first issue is, Denis, can I interrupt you? I see colleagues from ENG, and their topic is you're talking about forcing, and we are supporters that our partners need to be explained what is commercial infrastructure, what is contractual production. I would be very grateful if you can clarify this. Okay. First issue, two different terms. First, outsourcing, and the second is contractual production. I tried to describe it in a very simple way. Outsourcing is when I can't do it myself and I use somebody for that. And contractual manufacturing is quite the opposite. I can do it myself, but I refuse to do it consciously and place my orders at the independent manufacturers. There are two cases from the world practice. The first is with the Apple company, a very famous software and hardware company. Their software is developed inside the company, and it's their main focus, and hardware is produced outside the company, if you know that. And this billion of iPhone was produced by Foxconn company. Foxconn, does anyone know the name of the company? Foxconn? I think almost everybody. Yeah. Foxconn is the largest contractual manufacturer in the world. This is the company which manufactures 40% of the world electronics in the world. It produces different household gadgets for Apple, Bell, Amazon, Huawei, Hewlett-Packard, Sony, and etc., and many more. They have a kind of very big list. The volume, the turnover of this company is $136 billion of a year. It's one of the largest employers it employs like 40 million people. It is considered to be a technological business, but it's not that. You see this slide. This slide shows a billion Taiwan girls gathering Apple phones, and the second slide shows the Foxconn plant, how it looks like today. Foxconn is the largest consumer of industrial robots. It is 100% contractual company. It doesn't have their own products, and it differs from the food company, Apple, and product company. Apple has their own products and Foxconn doesn't. Moreover, if Foxconn decides to make their own smartphone, it will lose their all clients. It can act without any conflict with the product company. The second example is also brief. Let's take a lithographic machine here. It's one of the most complex engineering objects in the world. It's produced by SML company, and it takes like 80% of its market in the world. The cost of this machine is about $150 million, and Intel plant has 15 or 20 things like that. 80% of this machine is made not by SML company, but via contractual suppliers. For example, you see two photos below. These are one of the key units, vapor handler. Like it dispenses vapors to print chips architecture. These things are made by contractual companies, Dutch company Lidl, which is near the SML company production office. And this is the company which has global networks consisting of 137 contractual enterprises. It's one of the largest probably in the Europe in their segment. It has about €1 billion of turnover. And the contractual business on the whole is 100% loaded 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These are our partners. We are placing one of our orders with them, and they put us on November. They can't do it earlier. They have 300 engineers and constantly hiring new ones. This is about the dynamics of their company. This company is about 15 years old. Foxconn grew, excuse me for rewinding, Foxconn grew up from $21 billion from 2005, many times more by 2015, and it has very quick tempo of development. VDL company grew from about 50 or 60 million up to $1 billion for 10 years. These are 100% contractual companies. This company is engaged in contractual mechatronics, very complex things I have shown before. It is engaged in metalworking, plastic, and surface. Inside this company, if you come to the plant of this company, you can see from dirty rooms with metal scraps on the floor up to clean rooms. Excuse me, can I interrupt you? Do I get it right that this is a very big industrial enterprise consisting of some cubes which has each their own competence? Yes, but these cubes are three times smaller than the INNOPROM pavilion. I think that if VDL companies are combined together, we will get the same building size as INNOPROM now. And this thing will generate the majority of contractual services. This company has 37 companies in this structure you see here in this list. This is the list of the companies VDL has like contractual productions, and they are located in Taiwan or Singapore. Here I drew some examples of famous global companies which for the last 15 years invest to the development of independent contractual production in different regions of the world, from bus, for example, company, Coca-Cola company, Philips, and whatever. In principle, to summarize, in principle, the contractual businesses, as we understand it, we try to build the same in Russia. We are the network of technological centers, and my company has the following principle of operation. First, there is no one single customer. There are many clients, and it enables us to have a very good economic independence. Second, our product is a contractual service and development, and we have no competitiveness on this market. As soon as we get one product, we will go bankrupt. And if we have many clients, it enables us to divide our expenses between different clients and to lower the cost by 10 or 15%. You know that when I worked at Rosatom Corporation, I remember very well the costs which was added to the turnover of a corporation. Like it was about 20 or 200 or 500 or even 800. Here we have 10, 20 or 30% of adding the cost. You see that there is a very different level of productivity, reduction of cost of the unit of production of product, and it means the widening of the market. This is the essence of contractual business, and it enables us to earn more and to invest into the material basis. If we look at Russia, so there is a photo. Excuse me for interrupting you, Denise. Sergey, can I ask you the question, please? I'm interested. I was at your company and I see how you build it. So please, can you give the previous picture back about the Russia? No. I remember coming to you and you showed your industrial facilities, and you really try to focus your competences on metalworking. I know that other industrial branches will develop at your company as well, for example, plastic. Can you please tell me if your model is similar or you will go a different way? Well, I think the Foxconn workshop is more like our workshop is. Yes, I like the look of the enterprise like that. Although we are purely mechanical company, but I like this one. But do you have any contradictions with the trend Denise talked about? I would say that I agree with Denise 50%, but as for other 50%, there are contradictions, of course. I understood. Okay. Please talk about contradictions, because our task today is not just to praise each other, but to come to some mutual understanding as a result of the discussion. Denise, I'm sorry for interrupting. Can you, Sergey, please continue? Okay, about the contradiction. Can you, okay. This is the photo of contractual production from the internet. If you go to the internet and try to Google the contractual production, you will get the following information, that there are two types of contractual enterprises: 100% contractual enterprises and the enterprise which has contractual branch and also has their own products. Of course, it should be noted that exercising the contractual works enables the contractual companies makes their products better and to improve the quality of their brands. The world practice calls this theft. If you have contractual production, sometimes two operators a different machinery don't know what products they make. And it's very important that information from one client wouldn't go to another one. You cannot allow your contractual production to have their own products. This is the direct conflict of interest with the basic consumer. We are a network of 15 technological centers. We create startups of material-based technologies from robots up to special coatings, solar energy, whatever. I won't dwell on it. It's not the topic now. But at the same time, we create contractual or infrastructural companies. These companies produce services startup use. For 10 startups, we create one contractual companies. These are our statistic data today. Maybe we will increase the number of startups later, but any of our contractual companies is 30% loaded from the orders of our startups, independent legal entities conducting their own businesses. And it has 70% of orders from the market, from the metalworking to the composite engineering. Let me draw some examples. For example, Troitsk. This is my venue. I'm the stakeholder of it and the director general of it. We have 30 contractual companies and 84 startups on this venue. And it is engaged in producing heavy machinery, heavy expensive machinery, and these contractual companies are forbidden to have their own products. The startups are forbidden to have their own production facilities because the contractual companies can be not just engaged in production but engaged in laboratory tests and do some research and development things for startups. These labs are doing their tests. Okay, let me draw some examples. For example, composite contractual production. Of course, we always have two options for every customer. The first is to do everything inside the company, to hire expensive technicians, to buy samples of materials, to do lots of tests, and after that, to learn how to do the product. This will take about 3 or 5 years. The second option is to place an order with a contractual manufacturing company which is engaged in new technologies and composite technologies, for example, like in Troitsk, and it will be much faster and cheaper. Another example is industrial design. We have an industrial design company. This is a group of specialized companies. If you remember, some years ago, there was an excellent tram at INNOPROM displayed here. Of course, this thing wasn't implemented in production, and everybody knew it, including the designers who made it. That was not the sense. But again, there is always a strategy, two strategies. Either a company should hire expensive star designers or get some design concept and then implement this concept. The second option is to buy the professional service from the specialized company. And it will be much cheaper, for example, like with 3D printing. Our contractual production is also engaged in metalworking, electronics, equipment building, and some strange topics for contractual production like additive technologies and artificial diamonds. Thank you very much. So, Ekaterina, for 15 years you have been conducting legal practice in Munich. Please, I'm very interested how you would react on the word theft I've heard from Denise. The second thing, at present you are the Chief Executive Officer of a Special Economic Zones BFE Square, where a new economic model of attracting investments is used, and your experience is huge. I would like to hear your opinion about the global experience of creating contractual production facilities. Maybe you will tell your opinion about that, please.
Thank you very much, Andrei. Thank you very much for an invitation for this panel discussion, and thank you for your question. So first of all, I would like to say compliment to Dennis. I would like to take my hat off and note, so thank you very much. This is future that you are doing. As for my response to the term theft in my legal practice, I would like to say that we have faced a situation when many foreign investors, instead of organizing their own production in Russia, used the services of existing production. It's like Relish Poitier, Korkunov, different pharmaceutical companies, and when we were signing up such contracts, the major problem that we faced was to protect the intellectual property rights. So, but in reality, no one has ever tried to took a decision in respect to the first generation products to produce here. And the reason was associated with the fact that no one can guarantee the protection of the rights 100%. So even in spite of the fact that all of the requirements are followed in terms of the Russian labor legislation, and there is always a chance to refuse from work and find a new employer during 14 days, and an execution of any sanctions in labor agreements results in the fact that there is not possible to protect know-how in any way. From the point of view of the criminal code, I would not like to classify it, but it would be inappropriate from the point of view of any technologically fast-forward company to work with outsourcing with a company that is being a competitor. You know, there is a very interesting term in this respect. I would like to draw your attention to the fact you're using outsourcing. So I would like everyone to understand it correctly, because Dennis used to say that Dennis explained his own vision on outsourcing, and you've explained your position on outsourcing. And I'm also looking at the response from Yelena. She was also surprised when she heard the comments of Dennis on understanding of outsourcing. So probably I would like to listen to your understanding. So outsourcing, it means the use of the side resources. I'm ready to stick to the uniform terminology, and I'm ready to speak that contractual production is what was proposed by Dennis, when you don't have your own product and you use your facilities for manufacturing of those products that are created by other companies. So this way you provide services in respect to development. Well, you have the same vision, but both of you consider that that term that is described in Wikipedia does not correspond to the terminology. But we'll listen also to the third speaker from Yelena. I think that finally this is not the issue of terminology, but the issue of ideology. So the ideology is this: we live in Industry 4.0. We're trying to speed up with a certain layer of history when we didn't have any industry at all. When the Soviet Union disintegrated, and the major part of funding was concentrated on weapons complex. We didn't have light industry. We did have it, but it did not meet the needs. And nowadays we're trying to speed up. Dozen years after those years when our industry disintegrated, the Soviet Union disintegrated, and at that time the entire world transferred to Industry 4.0 when manufacturing stopped being material asset. And in greater sense, it became non-material. If we compare Tesla with Mercedes, Mercedes will consist of 30,000 spare parts, and Tesla will consist of 30 spare parts printed on a 3D printer. And I heard that in the first Tesla model, they had a problem when, during the process of braking, the Tesla car made a very quick stop, and people were not used to such speedy braking, and they were expressing their complaints, and the manufacturer changed the braking mechanism, and they spent only one night for reprogramming the software. And the idea is that the Tesla auto is not the one that is designed for the wheels. It is a program design. So, and this is what Dennis was speaking about today. The manufacturer creates a product in a digital form, and the production itself will serve for printing this product. And we will move forward in the same direction, which will also applicable for the light industry. And as far as I remember, even the first motor was printed out in Russia with 3D printer, and also the first dwelling house was also printed out with a 3D printer. And if you ask me about the future, I will tell you about how I see it. Well, maybe I will interrupt you. I would like to ask Alexei Besprozvanych a question. So in continuation of your topic, it was very interesting when you said that after disintegration of the Soviet Union, our cooperative interactions went down, the economy went down, and we've just started the process of reconstruction of our interactions. And here's a question to the department. Speaking from statistics, we see that the department have coped with this difficulty, and they are now at the moment of reconstruction. Here comes a question. Are you agree with Ekaterina that you've reconstructed this cooperation relationships? You see your industrial clusters working, they demonstrate investments, revenues, they are in line for getting investments and revenues. Maybe there is a time of an upbreak. Maybe we should not keep them satisfied with cooperation, but we should look at technology that are being named by Ekaterina. But maybe you think that we should reconstruct everything and then spend dozens of years on something else. Well, in the first one, I don't think that cooperation relationships have already been reconstructed completely. We are at the moment, to my understanding, where the primary stage of reconstruction. And by reconstruction, I understand that we've learned how to do it. I don't think that the department have already coped with it, because we've just started to proceed with this issue. When you speak with businesses and ask them how can we help, they say, please don't prevent us from doing something. You shouldn't poke your nose into our businesses. We see that the market is handling the situation, especially in this sanctions period. And we've also issued some additional instruments that stipulate these cooperation relationships. But I don't think that these relationships have already been reconstructed. Maybe somebody thinks that they have already reconstructed them, but speaking from statistics, it's not complete yet, but we've learned how to do it. Number two, honestly, as far as I understand, well, being the head of the department, are you ready to run a risk and utilize new instruments? It's already been mentioned about Tesla. We've listened to a presentation of the first presenter about the nanotechnologies. But speaking from your experience, is the department ready to apply a progressive approach to it? I do think that the main purpose is the increase of productivity of labor. All of us, speaking about businesses, have already been oriented on a client. We see these trends. enhance the increase of labor productivity. And right now we are preparing a program with the Ministry of Economy, and it will be very interesting to have a look at types of instruments that are going to be employed. And here we have Artem Shadrin, who is the flagman of this project, and we do not see any limitations that you are using in order to increase the productivity. This will be based on the desire of a region or several regions, how they will be integrated in the program. So what is important for us is the result, is the outcome. I don't see at the moment, I haven't understood what is the difference between outsourcing from the contractual manufacturing. I do not see any clear difference because from those definitions that I heard from Dennis, they're very close in sense. Maybe we'll have a further discussion on this, but we see that outsourcing is a very good instrument, and for the original industry programs, this instrument is already being utilized. It's well received, and it should be proceeded with. We should teach the facilities to use this instrument. So this is the opinion I have, but as for cooperation, we should move forward in this respect. And I would like to say in the sense that when we visit different facilities or companies, production companies, and right after our session I will have a visit to a production facility, but we meet those facilities that purchase very expensive machinery in order to concentrate all of the production at their territory. We don't know whether it's good or bad because they do not see at a wider angle. We see that they want, we do see that there are some facilities which have very good positive history. They are used to having the full technology cycle, and this story associated with outsourcing is a good story for them in order not to spend their efforts on purchasing heavy machinery, expensive heavy machinery, because they spend too much. Just from example, we calculated how much it would cost for one of the facilities, including logistics, how much would it cost to purchase this heavy machinery. It's better to wait rather than to manufacture it themselves. First of all, we should calculate. Well, thank you very much, Alexei. As far as we are closely connected with many of the manufacturers of 3D printers in the world, there are just a few. Speaking from statistics, in the recent 7 years, they exported 3D printers in Russia. All these 3D printers consume less than 1 ton of powder. You cannot consume it from nowhere. We all people know vendors of the powder. At that, 3D printers, metal 3D printers in Holland consume about from 50 to 20 tons of powder. We consume less than 1 ton. It means that half of it is in packaging yet, and the others are just used for shows for the bosses. It means that if we purchase everything, if we import everything, and if we develop vertical integrated chains when everything is done by people themselves and they don't want to give it back, it's not a definition, in fact, it's a kind of a directions that I described. If I can do it, and if I will not do it because somebody else can do it better and I will do something else better than anyone. Once you've started to speak about 3D printers, here we have Viktor Kavalin. This is uranium enrichment facility. They are also involved in 3D printers as well. Then I will also ask a question, why you're doing it once we are oversaturated with them. And coming back to contractual manufacturing, Ekaterina, your experience, what the contractual manufacturing is? Well, unfortunately, yet I didn't have contractual manufacturing experience in that sense that was described by Dennis in Russia. At the moment, my experience is very limited with production under contract. When a foreign manufacturer makes an order to purchase the goods from the Russian manufacturer like Rittersport or Karkunov in order not to establish their own production in Russia. They just order the product based on their own recipe. But if they are afraid to be cheated by the Russian manufacturers who may steal their recipe, they're always afraid. That is why they provide those products that are not the latest developments. That is what I had in my experience. And what Dennis is speaking about is a great outbreak because I think that the entire world is following this path. And I'm happy that we see it in Russia. But as for those 3D printers that are not used, is it correct that I understand that our large facilities, large companies, decided that they will produce their own 3D printers themselves? Because everybody is saying, yes, 3D printers, President is saying 3D printers, it's high fashion. It is impossible to provide a certain load for such equipment. That is why they are seldomly used. And as for the future, as I can see it, is that we should have certain facilities in order to accelerate development of industry. It's associated with the special economic zones and industrial technoparks, industrial parks as well. Those are facilities where the government contributes and allocates funds and thoughts and efforts of experts in order to establish those facilities at which it will be possible to establish high technology productions. Well, Alexei, this was a desire from business. I don't know how I responded or not. It would be great. You heard that the head of the special economic zone expressed her desire to establish such productions at special size in industrial economic zones and in technoparks.
Look, in my PowerPoint, I show the general system of industry. It is devoted to many things, all free venues that we have. I understood and heard it. Okay, please, everywhere on free venues of at industrial parks, technoparks, if the company has free facilities, it may do what they want. And the next slide is the Atlas of Industry. What we need to buy technologies and machinery. I was engaged in that myself. I know everything, but not all people know that. If everyone knew where to manufacture different things, as I, for example, know when I worked at the region where I was working. And the first thing you should do is to analyze the import from the region. The simplest details, the simplest parts are made, for example, in Lipetsk region, and we need these parts for manufacturing some units. Our company was ready to buy the machine to start these premises, to start these production facilities, but instead of that, we just made another thing. We just made two parties contact with each other, and the result was that we began to cooperate, and we loosened somehow competitiveness. We are ready to develop competitiveness at every venue and industrial outsourcing as well. Okay, understood. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I will change the track of events. We have Alexander Katovsky engaged in industrial politics. Yes, any questions? The interpreters cannot hear the questions because the speaker is speaking without a mic. Okay. Okay. The interpreters cannot hear the question because the speaker is speaking without a mic again. The speaker again is speaking without a mic. Yes, I understand. The speaker is speaking in a very low voice. Everybody wants to do the same at their own premises, but the question is about the result. The product company is understandable. We have population, we did the marketing research, and we understood the needs. And there is an industrial companies studying the market and offering services and products, but still, there is a question of system, how to form the share of this contractual production, manufacturing. For example, I'm a company, I want to be a contractual manufacturing company. Where should I go and how should I work at this market? How can I build this systematically? Otherwise, it will be useless. Okay, Alexander, we need some stimulation. I'm sorry, I need to interrupt. The question is understandable, but at least 3 people will answer this question. This is Galactica, this is Mr. Kovalevich, and Mr. Chukhontsov, and Mr. Dudin. 4 people. These are people who are doing this in reality. But each person will answer this question, okay? Okay. But it will take time, okay? Okay. Dear colleagues, I will go further. Dear Bavelina, Vice President of Chamber of Commerce. This is the person who devoted much of her time to support of small and medium businesses. This is a very diverse person. For example, her first education is connected with music, and diverse people are more saturated with ideas. Elena, I have a question for you. I saw your look when we spoke about outsourcing. Can you express your opinion about outsourcing and about the risks of it? You know, I can say that I don't agree with the definition that was shown here. I think this is a very simplified definition that outsourcing we can do, something we can do ourselves. My opinion is that contractual manufacturing is outsourcing. But it's very fashionable now to give new terms, to give new names, and now we are about to talk about contractual manufacturing. I have PowerPoint here. I'll try to show the basic things very quickly. Please, PowerPoint. Give PowerPoint for me to be very quick and to expose my position and our position of Chamber of Commerce, because I came to this Chamber of Commerce from the production facilities. I understood this topic perfectly. We understood the international experience very well. The large production facilities should cooperate with small businesses because it's favorable for everyone. But my topic is big opportunities versus big risks. We analyzed international experience and we saw that many countries have large productions and production facilities. And in many countries, there is a big engineering company, a big engineering holding company, which has their production facilities abroad. And it's about like 30% of production premises are given to the inside companies, and all the rest are given to outsources companies. There are huge opportunities for small business as well. I won't list any advantages any further for small businesses and large businesses, which are given to large businesses when they give a part of their production to outsourcing. Such kind of cooperation gives many opportunities to everyone, and the innovation is distinguished separately now, because in the post-Soviet Union we have a kind of gap between science and industry. The efficiency issue should be discussed separately, but the cooperation between science and industry was perfect in the Soviet Union, and there could be progress there. Nowadays, the cooperation between science and industry is broken, and the industry should buy many things from outsourcing from outside. Large companies can finance production institutions and design bureaus, but lots of things are given to outsources. I would like to dwell on advantages and disadvantages of cooperation exemplified by Transmash Holding. This is a big enterprise, a big Soviet legacy. Now it belongs to Alstom, to French companies, and the French very quickly said that lots of things should be given to outsourcing company. They made everyone to gather a list of parts which were not favorable to produce, and our Chamber of Commerce began active cooperation with them, because sometimes the description of outsourcing is not true, and the efficiency they describe is not true as well. Transmash Holding was ready to cooperate in any way. They have their own production facilities. For example, cast iron workshop. They continue these production facilities, but the quality is very low, and the new money should be invested in new equipment and new facilities. And we had an idea: what if we come to Novocherkassk, where there are less opportunities to do their own production companies, and there are less opportunities to cooperate as well. Of course, they were ready to lend their business, to give their business, and but there should be an optimal cooperation scheme. Here, the risks appeared, because I can say that this technological discrepancy, which we should be aware of, this technological discrepancy consisting of the need to buy new equipment and new finance from the Foundation of Development of Industry. This is a very good program supported by Chamber of Commerce. This program has their own possibilities for business, but it's still developing. As soon as I heard the Atlas of Industrial Companies, if it appears, it will be a breakthrough, a real breakthrough, because now we face the fact that inside Transmash Holding the companies make and call the same parts in different ways. They have no the unified list, and the state list of also absent. Excuse me for interrupting, but we have a little time. Yes, of course. Of course, I'm talking about risks. We have our own scheme, and we understand what we should do, what we should do to overcome this risk. And this is a real program, actual program. But you know, the threat now we now face consists of the fact that if we speak and not do, we will get nothing, because our main objective is to conduct practical business without changing names and without arguing about the essence of it. All the rest things I have about in the PowerPoint. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Time is up. Time is running very quickly already. Sergey, you're CEO of machine building company. You have your own functioning model. What is your opinion about contractual manufacturing? Are you ready to agree with the speakers and their statements. I would be very grateful for the answer to Alexander how the market for contractual manufacturing is formed. But please, just 3 or 4 minutes. Well, taking into account the questions asked, I will say that our company is first makes not machines but different gadgets. I always thought that I was engaged in outsourcing, but I would say that the thing is not different names. The cooperation between plants does not solve the issues Denise talked about. The problem is to make quality things, high quality things, but it has nothing to do with the cooperation between plants. Then, what does the contractual manufacturer want? The manufacturer who doesn't have a possibility to earn money on their products. He needs orders. He needs long-term orders. But where should he take it if the plant buys the equipment for the sake of one single detail? You see, 20% of marginality is on the work they did themselves. And the cost of making such a detail will be very, very high. So about the production facilities in our countries, unfortunately, we don't have private production facilities in our country. I would like to dwell upon the fact that we need to distinguish between the manufacturing, stream manufacturing, like Foxconn companies, and the single manufacturing, which makes like single items in technoparks, for example. This is not mass market. This is not mass gadgets. But I think it's very difficult to discuss such things. Not talking about China. What I would say, contractual manufacturer would be engaged in digitalizing and doing some civilized things, doing some digital things we talked about. The problem is not the list of items which names are different. The problem is standardization of algorithms and models. The problem is that what opportunities are given for the contractual manufacturer to earn money. If a manufacturer of brand or final products is interested in that and gives the possibility to earn money, the contractual manufacturer will be efficient. In order to make this a reality, there should be a market not for the mass production, because there are always capital issues on such kind of market. But this is not the production I'm talking about. I think that the bilingual task is solvable, but solvable not at this level of state programs. I was listening to the opinion of Minister of Industry and Trade and the position of Technopark. Unfortunately, I don't think that these positions are real and can be true to life. You see, 2,000%, 3,000%. And this is not effective, really. When the plant orders something from the contractual manufacturer, it means that something is wrong with this plant. Okay, Fedor Dudin, CEO of Gamberg, the enterprise built from scratch. So what is contractual manufacturing to your opinion? Does it coincide with the opinion of Denise, Katerina, and the representative of Chamber of Commerce? I think that we are talking about the same thing with different words. The main objective is to have the market and to have the volume of the products to sell. 3 years ago, when we began to go to the manufacturing company, we decided that we would build a modern plant, the up-to-date plant, which would make very modern electrical drives. And all our interested clients said, okay, please do, and we will see what comes out of it. We made the production, we built the production, and we are trying to sell our products on under our brand. And all interested people are now saying, okay, please work, and we will see what comes out of it. You know, electrical drives are rather complex technological articles, and they cannot be compared with metalworking services. We are ready to cooperate with a partner which will give us a possibility to go to the contractual manufacturing. But the thing is that we should look at scale of the market, because the Russian market is very smaller, many times smaller than the international ones. I saw some interesting figures in the presentations, and this confirms my point of view. Yes, sometimes the partners say that they're interested to have a market in Russia, like our Italian partners used to say. But as for Tesla company, they have a contract for 250 million euros. They do some stamp technologies, conventional stamp perceptions are different. To sum up, I would like to wish that our simple production would enable us to develop the scale needed for us to make our work more tangible, and the cooperation between technoparks and clusters more tangible, and would increase the real volume of sales. Dear colleagues, thank you very much. We have 2 minutes more. I will give the floor to you to express your opinion, please. And I would like also you to give the answer to the question.
Dear colleagues, I would like you to switch presentation on slide number 6, INNOPROM. So first of all, I would like to thank you for touching upon the topic related to contractual production in machinery and machine buildings. So it's next slide, please. It's next slide. Next slide. Here it is. We had an experience when we had a feasibility project with Roscosmos when we planned a network. It was a civil use Sputnik, and the network that was used for services for the next network and contractual manufacturing model for 2 levels of cooperation, for the first and the second level. And now we're working closely with Ural Vagon Zavod. We're also working on the development of the network. The head facility there is Ural plant of machinery, and we have up to 170 facilities within the cooperation network. And if it's interesting, we are presented here at 2 stands. First stand is the Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation. We are exhibited as far as we have the corresponding agreement where we provide the subcontracting services. The main thing that we're waiting for an answer from you, and now the answer to your question. So the main idea is that in the scope of these services, we also provide the network environment where we will post the accessible technologies, where we deal with certain models which describe my capabilities as a vendor and as the vendor of certain components. And the second slide, that on the basis of the units that are manufactured, when those units are being manufactured by a designer or by vendors, we describe the product and we describe the technology that is required. And we also provide the technology design and submit it to certain technological grounds. And we find resources with the use of this network, and we do not only obtain the resources, but we should determine whether they're appropriate and accessible, and we should also try to determine that those vendors will submit this information in terms of their load for the consumers of their technological capabilities to be able to plan when they will be able to use their technologies. For example, when they will have the window for 3 months, they will be able to post the order for this period. So that is why I would like to invite you to our stand. So thank you very much, dear colleagues, with great pleasure, of course. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Just in development of what has just been discussed by Alexei Besprozvannych, it's being implemented together by our ministry and the Ministry of Labor. The major parameters in this respect are so 5 feasibility regions will be selected for this year, and then for every region we will have about 10 to 15 large-scale companies with up to 100 million rubles turnover. And they will be looking at 3 major issues. The first one is related to increase of productivity and production management, and also what is related to technologies and limits in funds by optimizing productive capacity. And speaking from experience of those regions that have already moved far forward, for example, like Tatarstan, about 3 years ago, they proceeded with the optimization of production at certain facilities. They also proceeded with optimization of production processes for the vendors. Hence, they're looking at the entire system of vendors and suppliers, and they are using the instruments for the state support. Just 2 examples. The first one that is being implemented by the Integrated Construction Corporation that posted one of the ideas as the major strategic directions in terms of support to large-scale and medium-scale businesses and in association with certification of the product they produce. This is when they were able to be certified, to certify their products, and they transferred the production of spare parts to external suppliers. This way they improved and increased their production, their productivity. And another example is associated with a system of formation of services within companies. I'm in agreement with the fact that industrial parks and technoparks should be developed. And one of such technoparks is situated in the Novosibirsk region, where they have a kind of a complex infrastructural system of services for fabrication of different product prototypes, different types of production lines for low scope and large scope production. Such services could be used as one of the major statements for development of the regional innovation infrastructure for those cluster strategies that we also support. About a year ago, we encountered about 11 leading clusters in terms of development of industrial and technopark systems, and we think that in the nearest future it's going to be the mainstream in development. And the last thing I would like to say in terms of priorities of regional policies, in association with the restructurization of suppliers and support to innovations starting from startups and starting from 0 points. I think the third direction in this respect, which is very important, is the scale-up support. This is the support to those medium-sized companies, and I think that those companies that produce product on their own brands, I think they will also proceed with the contractual manufacturing, and it will take a certain location, or they will be incorporated in one of the major priorities in respect to programs associated with innovation. Artyom, thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I would like to outline, well, today we have already gathered all of the experts in their areas of excellency, And I think these are people who implement and support the state programs. And I think we somehow catalyze the process of discussion. And I'm deeply convinced that until we all understand the approaches, our train will not go any further. I think in the nearest future we'll get back to this dialogue. We are in dialogue with Rosnano that is treated like field work. We are studying the contractual manufacturing, and I would like to invite you for open dialogue. And I think that by the end of this year you will be able to see kind of a uniform, formalized document about what contractual manufacturing is, which manufacturing exists in Russia, and what types of business models are associated with it. I would like to invite all of the experts to this dialogue. I would like to invite Ekaterina, the Chamber of Trade and Commerce. I would like to invite those who are involved in this model. I think that this ball will roll and it will get larger and larger on our way to transition to zero-4 economy. Thank you very much.